From hunger to survival. The truth about prison food no one talks about. Smash subscribe, like, and comment if you can stomach the truth, because this story eats you alive. Sirens cut through the humid night outside USP Red Valley, a federal prison squatting in the desert like a concrete grave. Guards sprinted past the kitchen loading dock where an inmate lay face down, wrists zip-tied with plastic wrap torn from food pallets. His name was Marcus Hill, serving 20 years for armed robbery. The official report would later call it cardiac arrest. The autopsy would say otherwise. Inside the chow hall, trays still steamed. Gray meat, pale bread, watery beans. Dinner had ended 10 minutes earlier, and already the evidence was vanishing. A mop erased footprints. A camera blinked red, then went dark. Someone knew exactly which switch to flip. Detective Laura Chin arrived before sunrise, a civilian investigator contracted after a spike in prison deaths. She'd seen gang violence, shankings, riots. This felt different. Hill's stomach was empty, scraped clean, as if he'd been starving for days. Yet commissary records showed weekly purchases: ramen, tuna, instant coffee. Food meant leverage inside. If Hill had it, someone wanted it. Inmates whispered about the ledger, a handwritten notebook tracking debts paid in calories. Miss a payment, lose protection. Miss twice, lose teeth. Guards denied it existed. But Chen noticed identical burns on Hill's forearms, circular and deliberate, matching the size of industrial soup ladles. Punishment, not passion. Across the Atlantic, a British high-security prison reported a similar death. In Australia, a Max facility locked down after an inmate collapsed during breakfast. Different systems. Same pattern. Men were dying quietly between meals, where cameras didn't linger. Chen followed the paper trail to the kitchen supplier. Portions had shrunk. Nutritional labels didn't match shipments. Someone was skimming food before it reached trays, selling survival back to the hungry. The motive wasn't money alone. It was control. When a guard finally handed over a confiscated notebook, grease-stained, names crossed out in red, Chen froze. Hill's name sat at the top, circled twice. Beneath it, a date scheduled for payment. Tonight. And on the last page, written smaller, almost apologetic, were 3 words that changed everything. Approved by staff. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one, hit subscribe so you don't miss it. What they uncovered next would expose a system designed to starve, silence, and profit from human suffering worldwide. By noon, the ledger had vanished. Detective Laura Chin stood in the evidence room at USP Red Valley, staring at an empty plastic sleeve tagged with Hill's case number. The guard who logged it swore it was there an hour ago. Cameras in the corridor showed nothing. Another blind spot, another coincidence. Inside prison walls, coincidence was currency. Chun pushed harder. She interviewed inmates pulled from different units, men who never shared yards or shifts. Their stories aligned too cleanly to be accidental. Food wasn't just traded, it was rationed by unofficial enforcers called quartermasters. They controlled trays, kitchen assignments, even who got extra bread on Sundays. Starvation was punishment. Full meals were rewards. One inmate, an older lifer named Raymond Cole, slid a folded napkin across the table during rec time. On it were dates and initials, guards' initials. They skimmed the kitchen, Cole whispered. Sell it back, through commissary proxies. You fall behind. They mark you. Hill was marked. Across the ocean, British investigators hit the same wall. CCTV failures during meal hours. Kitchen staff rotating unusually fast. An internal memo flagged malnutrition complaints as behavioral issues. In Australia, a whistleblower nurse reported anemia spikes among inmates who never missed chow. The reports were buried. Transfers followed. Chun traced the money. Commissary accounts ballooned for inmates with kitchen access, then drained to outside cash apps through family members. The numbers led to one supervisor, Deputy Warden Eric Morrow. Clean record. Charity runs. Oversaw food services across multiple facilities as a consultant. When Chen requested Morrow's interview, he was already gone. On leave. Phone disconnected. That night, the prison went into lockdown. A fire alarm shrieked from the kitchen wing. Smoke poured out, acrid and thick, destroying records, labels, shipment logs. An accident, they said. Electrical fault. But in the ashes, Chin found something the fire missed: a scorched pallet tag from an overseas supplier, stamped with altered nutrition codes. Someone had been importing cheaper, emptier food, pocketing the difference, and selling hunger as discipline. Then came the threat. A note slipped under Chen's motel door, written in marker on a torn bread bag. Meals end early for outsiders. Minutes later, Raymond Cole collapsed in the yard. Alive, barely. Severe hypoglycemia. He hadn't missed a meal. As medics rushed him out, Chen's phone buzzed. A blocked number. One text message, 3 words long, echoing the ledger she'd lost. Approved by staff. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one, hit subscribe so you don't miss it. The lockdown didn't lift. It tightened. Detective Laura Chun watched USB Red Valley seal itself from the inside, movement restricted to meal hours only. That was the tell. Food was the clock, the leash, the weapon. Raymond Cole survived, barely, but he was transferred before Chin could see him again. Paperwork stamped urgent, destination classified. Another voice erased. Chin flew to London on a hunch and a favor owed. In the British high-security facility, the kitchen smelled the same: bleach and boiled starch. A former corrections officer met her off-record, hands shaking. He spoke of disciplinary diets, reduced calories authorized verbally, never logged. Inmates who questioned it lost kitchen jobs. Those who resisted lost weight. Some lost years of their lives to illness that never made headlines. Evidence began to surface, then disappear. A hard drive seized in London was corrupted overnight. An Australian inspector who agreed to testify withdrew after his house was broken into. Nothing stolen, just pantry shelves emptied, every can lined up on the floor like a message. Hunger follows you home. Chun connected the facilities through Morrow's consultancy firm, a web of subcontractors and shell vendors that standardized cost efficiency. The real efficiency was fear. Food became obedience. Obedience became silence. Back in the U.S., Chin returned to Red Valley unannounced. In the infirmary, she found a nurse who hadn't been transferred yet. The nurse admitted falsifying weight records under pressure. "We were told it reduced violence," she said. "Starve them just enough, they stop fighting back." That night, a riot nearly broke out over missing bread rations. Guards rushed the yard. In the chaos, Chin slipped into the kitchen storage. Behind stacked crates, she found a false wall. Inside, sealed boxes marked nutritional supplement. They were empty. On the floor, a scale. On the wall, a schedule. Names, times, portions adjusted downward, Hill's name circled, again. A radio crackled. Footsteps closed in. Chin photographed everything, then heard a familiar voice. Deputy Warden Eric Morrow stepped into the light, calm, disappointed. "You don't understand," he said. "Food keeps order. Order keeps people alive." He offered a deal. Walk away, publish a safer story, keep her career. Refuse, and the system would keep grinding, quietly. Before Chin could answer, an alarm blared. Another collapse in the chow hall. Another body on the floor. As medics swarmed, Chen's phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown contact. A scanned page of the ledger she'd lost, this time with a signature at the bottom. Eric Morrow. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one, hit subscribe so you don't miss it. The arrest didn't happen in handcuffs. It happened in silence. When Chun released the ledger pages to 3 international outlets at once, the system reacted the only way it knew how, by denying everything. Press statements blamed isolated failures. Consultants resigned. Deputy Warden Eric Morrow vanished again, this time across borders, sheltered by non-extradition paperwork he'd helped draft years earlier. But the story had teeth. Congressional hearings followed. In the UK, an independent review confirmed unauthorized calorie reductions. In Australia, an audit exposed falsified nutrition reports. Official language softened the truth, but the numbers didn't lie. weight loss spikes, anemia rates, deaths mislabeled as natural causes. Hunger had been policy, without ever being written down. Inside Red Valley, food shipments changed overnight. Portions increased. Complaints dropped. Violence didn't rise like they'd warned it fell. Men who could think clearly stopped fighting shadows. The myth cracked. Chun returned once more, this time escorted. The kitchen storage wall was gone, replaced by fresh paint. The scale had vanished. So had the schedule. Clean slates were easier to sell than justice. She found Marcus Hill's mother waiting outside, clutching a photo. Hill smiled in it, younger, fuller. They told me he stopped eating, she said. They said he gave up. Chun didn't correct her. The truth was heavier. Weeks later, Mora was found in a coastal town, living under another name. No charges stuck. Evidence had procedural gaps. He gave an interview, calm as ever. Prisons are dangerous, he said. Hard choices must be made. He spoke of order like mercy. The haunting part came last. An internal memo leaked months after the hearings. New guidelines, new language. No more calorie cuts. No more ledgers. Instead, behavioral nutrition optimization. Different words. Same power. Hunger, renamed. Chun archived the case, but she couldn't close it. Because survival inside those walls still came down to trade, to favors, to who controlled the next meal. Food still decided who got strong and who faded. On her desk sat a final envelope, no return address. Inside was a single commissary receipt, time-stamped the night Marcus Hill died. One item circled in ink. Bread. Quantity, 0. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one, hit subscribe so you don't miss it.